Really now. It's admirable they would come so far for their studies. I've heard Japan is a country full of modest, hard-working people. The way you speak to the efforts these two have made, however, makes me wonder if there is something special about them.
Special? Yes, that's a lovely way of putting it. I hope it doesn't take them long to feel at home here.
If I may offer some advice of my own on that front, try to get to know them better.
What do you mean?
Even the most capable of detectives wouldn't work to solve a case without knowing anything of the victim and the suspects. It's only by trying to understand how another person thinks that you can begin to get closer to them.
I'm in awe, Pendleton. You can give smart advice once in a while. Dang, that burn.
I do more than once in a while, my lady. My lectures are filled with excellent advice for your benefit.
I couldn't agree more with you. If I want to know them, then the best way to go about it is to strike up a chat. There's no better way for two different cultures to understand one another. Thank you, Pendleton.
I suppose I'm pleased to have been of service.
Oh, I nearly forgot. There's something I wanted to ask.
Ask away.
What do the words licentious and depraved mean? Poor Dad Pendleton. Oh no. He's about to go bust some kneecaps. Pendleton had been in the middle of preparing my tea, but his hand stopped mid-air.
Where did you hear those words, my lady?
It was at school. That's the most I can say.
I don't feel at all comfortable explaining either of those to you.
Are they both truly so distressing to explain?
Yes, I'm afraid so. Why not take this as an opportunity and ask those two exchange students? I'm sure they will know the answer.
You'd really rather have the two of them explain than you? Really? This is a terrible idea. Do dictionaries not exist yet?
It'll give you something to talk about with them.
Now that's an idea. That's a terrible idea. Pendleton, what are you doing? I resolved to greet them again the very next day. I had so very many things I wanted to ask. What is Japan like? What can you do there? What do you like to do? Whilst drinking the tea Pendleton had prepared especially for me, I sat and planned what I was going to ask tomorrow with fervor. Grand. Now what should I do? Are we gonna get an update on our parents' murder? Well, we're gonna read a book again. Perhaps I should read a book. A single volume on the desk caught my attention. Its title was Adventures in London. In it, the protagonists visit a wide variety of different places, and you're invited to experience those places with them. It's full of all kinds of places that I've never been to or seen before. I've never even been on a proper holiday, but I'd really love to visit some of these places on one. Oh, I know! Maybe I should give this book to... Oh! We'll give it to Kobayashi, because I don't want to smooch Akachi just yet. I want to show it to Kobayashi! How unexpected. I was not prepared for this choice. There are all kinds of interesting places throughout England covered in it, so I'm sure he'd enjoy reading it. Right! I'll take it to school tomorrow, then. Adventures in London, a story where a group of people travel around London. Despite the title, it features locations other than the capital. Cute. I'm feeling tired. I ought to go straight to sleep. I stood from the chair and made my way towards my bed. I heard a knock on my bedroom door. Who else has died, butler? Come in.
Forgive my intrusion, my lady.
Pendleton entered the room. In his hands were a healthy number of documents. I could only assume they related to his investigation into my parents' murders. Steeling myself, I asked him to report his findings.
Well, things are beginning to look a little suspicious, to tell the truth.
How so? Pendleton cast his eyes downwards towards the photograph before continuing.
Here we have Baron Stanley. His life was lost in an accident.
Him too? First Viscount Quincy and now Baron Stanley?
Indeed. His death came 2 years after that of your parents.
Actually, I've been wanting to look. Oh. Well, most of the guys had their hands behind their backs anyway. I was like, does everybody have rings?
As well as being part of the fund, he conducted voluntary activities of his own. He would often count on your mother, father, and their other friends seeking help and advice. He proposed measures to the government for improving conditions in the slums and decreasing waste using neighboring countries as a model, but all did not end well. One night, after visiting a pub he frequented, he drunkenly fell into the river. His body was discovered in the Thames the next day.
He fell or he was pushed?
The following autopsy, however, found startlingly little water in his lungs.
Ah, so he was killed and then thrown into the river. I see. There's a high chance that his death was no accident, then.
That is correct. Still, Scotland Yard believes there to be no evidence of that, and is of the opinion that it was only that. An accident. I also wish to bring to your attention more on Viscount Quincy's circumstances before his death. His personal life had left him exhausted overmuch due to the failure of a mine in which he invested and his parents becoming increasingly ill.
Oh. I felt just awful for him, but it was not as though I could do anything for him now. It was a terribly pointless feeling.
Next we have Professor Randolph. His death was 7 years ago. He overdosed on elixir, which caused him to enter an overexcited state, and jumped from the 3rd floor of his flat, committing suicide.
I will say, whoever posed all these deaths likes variety. None of them are alike. Just the fact that they all died under accidents, but all the accidents are very different from each other.
Rumor has it he started using several months before his death and developed an addiction.
What could have possessed him to do that? Pendleton turned to the next page of his collection of documents.
I fear I cannot ascertain the reason, but there are a few mysteries surrounding his death.
Like what?
Well, the cause of death is cerebral contusion brought on by the fall. And yet... You see, it was discovered that a large amount of pressure was applied to his fractured cervix from a direction that isn't consistent with anything else relating to his death. The autopsy report concluded that both the direction of his neck fracture and the direction of the force which caused his head trauma don't match.
That's an intriguing find. Then his neck could have been broken before the fall.
Very perceptive. Before his death, he was said to have mentioned that his friends' deaths were more than mere coincidence a number of times at a chemist he frequented.
It must have been awful for him to live in that state. Still, at least that means I wasn't the only one who didn't believe my parents' deaths were an accident.
Indeed. He was quite famous in London as a professor, as it so happens. I went to hear him speak with your parents several times and always walked away impressed. It's unfortunate that he stopped speaking publicly during the years before his death. He always appeared to be afraid of something.
Thank you for finding this out for me. You've done excellent work. He accepted my words with a perfect, modest smile. The more I learn of the people in that photograph dying under mysterious circumstances, the stronger I feel their deaths had something more to them. And they were all suffering from misfortune before their deaths, too. It's all far too suspicious. If they were all murders made out to be accidents or suicides, just like in the case of my parents, it's genuinely starting to look as though someone wanted everyone involved in this fund dead. With their deaths being separated by several years, I doubt many would suspect this to be a case of multiple murders, but I cannot count myself amongst them.
I agree. There are too many little similarities between them.
If only we knew the truth. Might you prepare for me a list of the remaining people in this photo, Pendleton? I'd like you to investigate their safety for me.
As you wish, my lady.
After bowing to me, he departed the room. I couldn't help but feel as though his image clouded over slightly as he did. Pendleton, why you gotta be so sus? Testimony B. A collection of information gathered by Pendleton. Were my parents' friends' deaths a simple coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidence. Alright, next episode. The Littlest Landlady. Oh, we're finally gonna meet Miss Hudson. Great. Another morning, another clear, cloudless sky. I had no room for complaints as far as the weather was concerned.
You're awake surprisingly early, considering you don't have school, my lady.
Pendleton poured me a cup of tea, as he always did after breakfast. Today's was a cup of flavored Earl Grey. Well, I'm to visit Holmes and Watson's office with Marple. I can't afford to sleep in and be late. He may not have directly asked, but I saw no reason to hide it. I finished the last bit of the paper I'd been reading before looking at him. Knowing Marple, were I even a teensy bit late, she'd often leave without me.
Oh, I can picture that. About as well as I can picture you running after her, completely beside yourself, before tumbling unceremoniously to the floor. You shan't give up so easily, of course. Rather, you haul yourself up over and over, pursuing her relentlessly like a wild animal.
Are you attempting to praise me or make fun of me, Pendleton?
Make fun of you? Heaven forbid! Why should I ever do any such thing?
I get the slightest feeling of ill will from your choice of words.
Ill will? Gracious, no. I am but a playful tease in comparison to the malice depicted in that article.
Nice segue there. Pendleton made a quick glance at the open newspaper. Counterfeits found in Minton tableware collection nearly presented to the royal family. This is unconscionable. I've always adored Minton tableware. Their floral and gold leaf designs are so beautiful. I can see why Her Majesty loves them.
How deplorable that Her Majesty was almost presented a forgery.
It absolutely is. It sounds like counterfeits being on the market has been an issue for some time.
Indeed it has. Some of them are so well made as to be almost indistinguishable from their originals. I shudder to imagine a world where the place of genuine articles has been overtaken by forgeries.
As do I. If this continues, the value of originals could plummet. It disgusts me to think that there are people taking advantage of our desires for beautiful tableware for their own profit.
My lady, I certainly do understand your concern regarding the price of genuine goods decreasing. But you aren't going to be late for your gathering, are you?
Dash it! I didn't know it was so late! After being seen off by Pendleton, I rushed to meet with Marple. We were to meet in Mayfair, London's West End. Wait for me, Marple! I shall leave you behind if you cannot keep up. Thanks, girl. Is that store called Holidays? Watson invited us to his and Holmes's flat, and so we decided to walk the way together. Are we still not there? I can't see how those two walk this distance to school every day. It stimulates the brain and allows us to collect our thoughts. So if anything, Holmes wouldn't mind walking an even longer distance. Although, I have to wonder if there are enough thoughts in Watson's brain to properly collect. That's rather mean. Come now, I was only teasing. I'm sure there's more than dust somewhere in there. Dang.
I'm certain that was no simple tease.
They use this flat as both their living space and office. And by the sounds of it, they pay the rent using the proceeds from their detective work. It's a wonder they earn enough to be self-sufficient at their age. And to do it all without any women in the house at that. How do they manage the washing and cleaning? Have you forgotten Emily? I can't see Holmes in the kitchen, at least. He's more likely to use beakers for testing the blood of corpses than making the tea. He made me a delicious cuppa the other day. I will defend him in that. But the results wouldn't be very accurate that way. Nice. That wouldn't produce the most accurate results, in my opinion. I wonder what that is. Is that her being like, I am smart? And your opinion is spot on. I know I find it strange to see high levels of caffeine and tannins in a corpse's blood. Indeed. Even then, whatever Holmes can do in regards to cooking and cleaning, I should think Watson even less capable. Dang, why is this Dunk on Watson Day? What did he ever do? And yet the shirts they wear at school are always nicely pressed. Certainly not the work of a man's. Their flat is a bit of a special case. It comes with free meals and tea and such from the landlady. Oh, now you mention it, I'd heard as much from Watson. What a sweet thing to do for your tenants. Poor thing. Looking after Holmes must be a nightmare. More of a nightmare than caring for a pet cat, I'd wager. We continued to chatter away until we finally reached the flat. How many times had I been here now? All right, this made it the 4th, didn't it? I should prefer a carriage for the 5th.
There you are! I was hoping you'd arrive about now. Thanks for dropping by.
We were happy to. I wanted to come and visit again soon, so the timing was just right. Were you off on an errand just now?
I was, but only to the post office to send off a letter. And if you'd ever like to visit, you don't need to wait for an excuse, you know. Coming to see us is reason enough, isn't it?
I suppose you're right. Thank you.
Speaking of, I hope it was alright to call you over like this today.
Very much so. Besides, you must be rather taken with this lady to seek outside help for whatever dilemma she's in.
I think there's been a misunderstanding. The lady in question is our landlady, and I only thought fellow women would better understand her feelings.
So that's who it is. I did hear she's quite young, but I didn't know she was close to our age.
You did? She is young, that much is true, but, never mind. Step in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Watson opened the door to allow us inside. Thank you for holding the door. I took one step in and was immediately cut off by someone new. Oh boy, here we go. Where have you been, you horrendous nitwit? Ah! Oh, hello. I could scarcely let out a yelp of surprise before a small girl had crashed into me. She had a lovely mint shade to her hair, mostly tucked beneath a yellow bonnet that was fastened with ribbons near both of her ears. How could you leave a girl alone for so long? I was given the worst kind of fright, I'll have you know. The way she clung to me was much like a child cling to their mother. There was no chance to escape or even to step aside. That and her shoulders had the tiniest, most adorable quiver. What gentleman puts a lady through this? A failure of one, that's what! I'd been terrified this entire time, just terrified! If I die during this case, I swear to become a ghost whose only desire is to haunt you forever! I suppose the best course of action here is to save. Quickly. Very quickly. Small girl? What shall I say? Yeah, I'm sorry. Forgive me. It was never my intention to frighten you, young lady. What are you doing? I'm pretending to be an English gentleman. Wait, who might you be? The girl seemed bewildered from having realized she scolded the wrong person. Or could that perhaps have been the way she always looked? Her eyes, a striking blue, were as large as I'd ever seen, and were made more doe-eyed still by tears that sparkled.
She's a schoolmate of mine and Holmes's. I called her here.
It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Emily Whiteley. Let me look at you, girl. You're very cute. Emily Whiteley? My! Are you not one of Her Majesty's detectives? You know of her? That I do! Only a true lady reads the daily paper, if that's not too brazen to say. Oh, look at me! I didn't intend to greet a guest so roughly. The more her understanding of the situation raveled, the more her emotions unraveled in turn. You'll forgive me, won't you? It's not often one is forced to see me in such a frantic state.
You could do with learning some patience.
I am patient! I am! Unable to cope with the embarrassment, she buried her face in her hands.
All right, Hudson, all right. Put the kettle on, won't you?
Right away! I'll put on the finest tea you've ever had. Do come along in. Thank you. Oh, are you... I'm Sarah Marple, and you're... Marple intently scrutinized Hudson, who seemed to fidget from nerves the longer upon she was stared. You're like a little puppy. You're a rather charming landlady, aren't you? Puppy? I can't say I've been called that before. Regardless, come. I'd love your help with this. It would be my pleasure. We made ourselves comfortable as Hudson prepared some tea. Here you are. Ooh, thank you. And for you, Miss Marple. Thank you. There.
Oh, put it down with more care. Gently now.
We both know you'll spill the load of it once you start drinking. All right, then. I ought to introduce myself. I'm the landlady here, Abigail Hudson. Yes, we've heard a lot about you. You cook all the meals here, yes? Mm-hmm. I make every single one for every single tenant. I'm not one to boast, but everyone loves them.
That's what you call boasting.
And not only do I do the cooking out of the goodness of my heart, I do all the washing and cleaning for some hopeless tenants who can't manage it themselves. And would you look at that? We have one shining example right here. He's the one wearing a hat. Why is this dunk on Watson Day? What did Watson do to the universe today? She pointed at Watson so directly that a shockwave might have flown from it. Neither he nor Holmes do any housework at all! It's unbelievable!
Must you tell her that?
I only speak the truth. You don't get to deny it. It boggles the brain how two grown men living under one roof can't learn the first thing about washing or cleaning or... I'd say it shows how capable you are even when you look so young. Those aren't things simply anyone can do. Well, I was entrusted with these flats by my aunt, so I want them to be spick and span at all times. Ah, she's your aunt. Okay. She thrust out her chest with pride.
Don't forget, you had something very important you wanted to discuss with them, didn't you?
Yes, you're right. Very important. Her smile vanished and was instantly replaced by a grave frown. Tell us everything. Listen, something dreadful happened last night. Hudson had a way of jumping from one expression to the next without losing an ounce of sincerity. She was growing increasingly emotional as she explained her predicament. When I returned home at 9, I found my room in a disastrous state. I know I locked the door when I went out, too. Around what time did you leave home? 6 at night. A relative of mine was visiting London, so we went to eat at a place belonging to his friend. So the crime took place sometime between 6 and 9 in the evening. I was so frightened I rang Scotland Yard immediately and had them investigate. Fortunately, the master key for everyone's flats was in the safe, so all's well there. No money was taken either. Now, one thing I haven't been able to find since is a very important piece of tableware. It was part of my late grandmother's collection.
They said they'll try looking into it, but the odds of finding it seem to be low.
Do you suspect it was stolen? Yes, and there was something else unusual about that night. The window had clearly been broken into, but the glass fragments that should have been there simply weren't. They were all gone. That is unusual. The window is made from ordinary glass, isn't it? It is, but I can't fathom who else could have taken them. There was not a single fragment among the mess. For what reason would the culprit take broken glass with them? I guess I will document that. I guess I don't need the stuff from here anymore. Escape. There we go.
Oh, on the subject of the glass.
Watson piped in as if he'd been thinking long and hard about something.
That may be missing, but the culprit left something else in its stead. Blood. I suspect they were injured by the shards. There's evidence they made to wipe this blood off the floor as well, so perhaps it was all taken to reduce evidence.
It's possible. Then we're potentially looking for someone with an injured arm or hand. Okay. Where is Holmes, by the way? I half expected the man would come barging in salivating the second he smelt a case. Oh, that he most certainly would. Is he out for the day?
He's in Edinburgh assisting with one of his dad's cases. My dad's with them also.
Oh, what a big shot. Well, that sounds like a right little family outing. Why didn't you join them?
I didn't want to leave the office unmanned, so I asked Holmes if I could stay. Besides, I've had my fellow trips with the four of us when we were children.
Watson's lips curled into a bitter smile at the corners. That must be quite the outing.
That's why I'm all on my own. And I'm sure you agree that this might be a bit much to handle without any additional help. I'd really appreciate it if the two of you were to lend me a hand.
Certainly. Can you tell us more about the item that was stolen, Hudson? Plenty. It's a regal Dalton plate, for one thing. Quite an old one, too, with a well-loved floral and fruit design. It's in such pristine condition, even Mum said she's rarely seen tableware with colors as pretty. Which item has more value? The stolen plate or that cup and saucer with the flowers and lemons? Marple indicated in the direction of another item in Hudson's collection. The plate, of course. Not to devalue them, but the cup and saucer are both false. Look at the mark on the back. I gently turned the saucer upside down. Royal Dalton, Lord Woodmouse? On it was a symbol of a lion standing atop a crown, but instinct grabbed me whilst I observed it. Something wasn't right about this. I turned over another nearby piece of tableware and confirmed my suspicions. There was a striking difference between the two designs. Yeah, one has a star in the middle, and one has 4 circles. See? They aren't quite the same as this one here. I don't mind it, though. It might not be the real thing, but my mom gave it to me, and my grandmother used to drink from it, so it's real enough to me. I can't rest easy if I don't have it, so I always keep it with me. Hudson. She was right about the marks on the cup and saucer, that the marks on the cup and saucer were different to that on the rest of her collection, but this was not the end of my suspicions. Marple, am I correct in thinking the lion is only meant to have one tail? You are, but this one has 2. In fact, everything except the tea set depicts a lion with 2 tails. Hudson, may I ask a question about this cup?
Actually, I'd like to ask you something myself first.
Watson quickly led me and Marple outside for some privacy.
Okay.
Is something wrong?
Well, you see...
Something doesn't add up. She's telling us that the stolen plate is genuine. Whoops. Oh no. This... I need to, reread that. I double-clicked by accident. I can't help but think. I know what's been bothering me. Yeah, I'm thinking that the plate is a counterfeit. So they didn't steal the genuine article. Which is interesting. The plate that was stolen is actually a counterfeit. It's the cup and saucer that are genuine Regal Daltons.
That's right. But she's been convinced otherwise ever since she was a child. She doesn't have a clue.
I don't know if that would matter that much to her, though. It's more the sentimental value, if anything, I think. Interesting that the culprit chose to steal the plate in this case. I have an idea who the thief could be, then. Who could have stolen the plate? Yeah, it would have to be someone close to Hudson, because she would have told them it was genuine. It had to be someone close to her. That's why they chose to steal something important to her over something of monetary value. That's how I see it. A burglar would have targeted something they could sell. But that begs the question, why steal it at all? If we stayed outside for much longer, Hudson would grow suspicious, so we decided to go back inside. And upon our return, as if it had only just come to her, Marple suddenly began to share an old tale. I'm reminded of a similar story from my grandmother. The case of the Benjamin family, if you've ever heard of it. Oh? Do tell. It happened in her home village of St. Mary Mead. The Benjamin family ran the only shop in the village. If it was there, then what does this have to do with here? I'm sure she'll get to that. Just keep listening. Oh, all right. Like this case, tableware had been stolen. It was the culprit who later claimed to have found it before promptly returning it safely to its owner, earning a considerable reward in the process. So they set the whole thing up for a reward? That's right. I wouldn't be able to tell the full tale if the truth hadn't come out at some point, of course. They were later ostracized for their actions. The owner of the tableware was a kind soul, however, and they forgave the thief for their crime. Are you telling us all this because it might be what's happening to me?
It's one option, though it's still too early to say for certain.
We can't yet dismiss that we might be dealing with an honest-to-goodness theft. Wait! I've got a brilliant theory of my own. Will you hear it? By all means. The plate that was stolen was a Regal Dalton original and one of the finest in the land. She enthusiastically produced a newspaper and unfolded it over the table. Gentleman Thief Lupin Jr. targets another British national treasure. Is being beautiful a crime? His list of stolen antiques says yes. Oh no, no more Lupin, please. I can't. My heart can't handle. Isn't that an issue of the London Sport? You're aware of how infamous it is for the rubbish it publishes, I'm sure. I should hope you aren't taking anything it says to heart. But look! This bit right here! He's even started setting his sights on the treasures lurking in ordinary British homes. Readers, beware! This must be it! Dear. Oh.
Right.
It pains me to say this after the work you've put in, Hudson, but I doubt Lupin Jr. is the culprit. Agreed. I'd also recommend you stop reading that newspaper immediately. It's for your own good. But that plate is a national treasure! Why, if I were a gentleman thief, I wouldn't dare turn down a chance to steal it. Perhaps, but he wouldn't make a mess of a young lady's room in the process. That's simply not the way he does things. From what I've observed of his thefts, at any rate. Well, there must be some explanation. With no defense left for her claim, Hudson grew quiet. This conversation wasn't without its results, at least. We now knew that the best place to start our search would be with the people closest to her. Right. Let's start our investigation. Would it be alright if we borrowed a list of the current tenants? Of course. I only ask that you keep its contents private. Not to worry, we will. Hudson went over to the shelf and pulled a handful of documents from it, which she then displayed for our perusal. You want the current list, which is this one. Thank you. Oh? What's that one over here? I was drawn not to the one she displayed most prominently, but to a second sheet, one that looked ever so slightly aged compared to the other. This one? It's the previous tenant list. We used to have 2 more flats filled than we do now. I see. Might we look at that one as well, as a precaution? I don't see the harm in it. Mind you, I can't see it being relevant to your investigation.
No reason not to start with the current list as things stand, but better to be thorough.
Ooh, is it time to start questioning people? May I join in? My, would it do for the landlady to leave the building unattended? These are special circumstances, and that ring means you would never abandon someone in need, right? Never ever. Leave the investigation to me. Then logic dictates you'll need a capable assistant. Holmes has Watson, but you don't have anyone. Poor Marple. She's just standing off to the side like, ahem, do you mind? An assistant? What a thought. A fine thought, even. It would be wonderful to have someone like Watson helping me. Yes! You need someone who's considerate, courageous, someone who can make rational decisions when the time calls for it. Truly, that does sound wonderful, but it would not be easy to find someone like that. Oh, hello. It's a good thing you don't have to search, then. From now on, I'm your assistant.
Hudson! You can't force her into it.
And why not? I'd give anything to solve this case together.
Maybe so, but you're the client in this case, and it's much too dangerous to be coming with us when we might come across the thief. And what if they were to come back when they see the flat is empty?
We've nothing to fear. Not with you as a wall to shield us from the danger.
A wall? Why not something more like a gallant knight? I'd even settle for something resembling a human. You'll come to my defense, won't you, Emily?
I'd say we're ready as can be. Remember to arrive promptly tomorrow, Watson. We can't do this without you.
Are you ignoring me?